All right, welcome back to I don't know what episode this is because I don't know when it's going to release, but we have our one of our coaches here, Matt Comrie, and we'll be speaking with him today. Getting some background info on him, and about his involvement with Fast Tracks and how he got there and all that stuff. So, how you doing today, Matt?
Yeah, great, man. Yeah, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
You too. Appreciate you doing this. It's been easier than I thought to get people to want to do this thing. So, and everybody seems to be kind of enjoying it. So, I'm pleasantly surprised by that. So, first off, the first question I'll always ask everybody is, you know, I'll start off by saying, like, how you've been involved with Fast Track since Fast Tracks recently had started, and then were you with Lean as well?
Did 1 year with Lean, and then I was 10 seasons coaching at Mid Ohio before that. I did the
Awesome.
last season, and I've done 4 or 5 seasons now with Fast Tracks.
Awesome. So, how I always kind of start with stuff is like, how did you get into riding motorcycles to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, so when I was 16, everybody would have liked to get a car, but I couldn't afford one, and so I found a little. It was an '81 Honda Hawk 400, and it was $600, and so I really just bought, knowing that it was it was going to be a little rough living in Cleveland. It was going to be like part year transportation, and then the rest I was bumming rides off of friends. But I bought it just to be able to have my own vehicle to drive to work, to drive to school, different things like that. But as you and probably most people who ride know, man, I fell in love with riding, and it kind of became a love affair from there on out, where I just fell in love with bikes and riding and just all things two wheels.
Well, so what got you into from that? What got you into interested in like riding at the track?
Yeah, so I mean, I used to go down to bet long before it was motorway. We used to me and some buddies used to ride down to the AMA races down at Mid Ohio, and man, that was a long time ago. And we used to watch those guys, and when you watch them coming down the back straight and they're like rear wheels coming off the ground into the braking zone, and they're blipping down, and you're just in awe of those guys, and you're thinking to yourself, man, this is not something I would ever be able to do. These guys are crazy, like they're just nuts. And so that went on that way for a number of years, and then my cousin, which some people will know, John Yeager, who is a coach down at Mid Ohio still. He was doing track days back down at Mid Ohio years ago. This is probably back 2010, 2011. And he's like, hey, man, you should just come down and watch us ride. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, why not? So I went down, and of course, watching the intermediate guys and the A guys, I'm like, yeah, man, I still, I've been riding for years, but I still didn't think that that was something I could do. But then I remember kind of hanging out. I think Mike Malakar was leading the novice school. So I remember just kind of hanging out in the pits, listening to what he was talking about. And then I watched the novice group go out. And, they weren't doing a crazy pace. They were going at a nice, comfortable pace. And all of a sudden, I don't know, it's just something started clicking. And I'm like, I think I might be able to do this. And so I kind of hung out with the novice guys the rest of the day, and, just watched them ride, kind of hung out in the classroom. And believe it or not, I mean, I went home, and by the time I got to bed that night, I'd bought a set of leathers, and this was the end of the season. Like this was like one of the last weekends, so it wasn't going to happen for like all through the winter and the spring until next spring or summer. But I'd bought boots, leathers, gauntlet, gloves. I already had a couple of good helmets, so I couldn't even stand it. I couldn't wait through the winter to get out there and do my first track day. And so yeah, that's kind of how that's how that all got started.
What were you riding on or riding at that point in time?
Yeah, I was on a 2008 CBR 1000.
Oh, big bike, big bike.
Yeah,
Uh,
leader bikes. I mean, I had some other bikes. My 400 Hawk. I had a 750 Nighthawk, and then uh, my first like crotch rocket, so to speak, was an '87 Hurricane 1000. And then I went up to a Ninja 1100, a ZX11, and then I wound up getting a 90. I wound up getting a 99 900 RR, and just went from there. And then by the time I got into track riding, I was on a 2008 CBR 1000.
I had a 98 CBR 900RR, the purple and yellow.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
99.
Mark Blitnikoff, when I did his interview, I was talking to him, and it was the same thing. It was funny because he was like, "Yeah, I had one of those, and the exact same color scheme." The other thing that's kind of funny is you're talking about like you went and watched it, AMA and whatever, and that was kind of like the same thing that sparked it for him. That's pretty interesting. Um, so when you did your first track day, what was it like? Was it your expectations going in versus reality? Like what were your feelings that day? And just kind of give me a little your thoughts on that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I couldn't sleep the night before. My wife, I didn't have a trailer. I had a pickup truck, so we loaded the bike up in the back of the pickup. We had to kind of kick it sideways to get it tied down. Through the ramp in the back, and went down. Spent the night out in Mansfield. I could barely sleep. I remember the next morning there was dew all over my bike, and I was freaking out. I was wiping it down. But I just remember I was nervous, man. I think I had to spend a half an hour in the bathroom because I was just nervous. I was excited, but I was also kind of nervous. But yeah, when I got there, man, Mid Ohio, they made it so easy. Had a ton of great coaches, and I think Malakar was teaching that novice school as well. But then Dennis Meerwald and Brett Woodard were my two coaches, and back then Mid Ohio had enough coaches where they ran about 4 or 5, two per group. They had a bunch of different groups that were just in, and they used to have a coach in the front and a coach in the back, which was great because, as you know, it's so hard for us when we're coaching novice. We're constantly trying to look behind us and stuff. There's only so much you can see until you actually get to follow the students. And so these guys, they kind of had to follow the leader, and then they had a guy bringing up the rear group, and so that was hugely helpful because they could kind of see. But I remember me and another guy, a friend of mine, John, both doing our first track days. He was on, I think, a GSXR 750. And I just remember we were pretty fast from the beginning. And, so Dennis, kind of really worked with us throughout the afternoon to really try to get us honed in on some things. But as you know, man, I had a blast. I was hooked. So that was my first day, fell in love with it, and, you know, kind of took off from there.
Right on. Yeah, I guess we already kind of covered you. How long you've been with Fast Tracks and stuff. But so, what got you into wanting to coach?
Yeah, so I mean, I did a couple novice days that summer, and then pretty quickly got bumped into intermediate, um, and was in intermediate probably for most of the rest of that summer. Probably, you can't. I could only do certain number of days with work. I mean, that was the tough thing about Mid Ohio is they didn't do weekends like Fast Tracks does weekends, which is great. But Mid Ohio usually did Monday, Tuesday, and then they did some twilight stuff back then. So I got there as much as I could, but I remember right towards the end of that first summer, I was talking to Dennis, and he's like, you're probably back of the pack advanced, but you're on your line, you're smooth, you're predictable. You might want to think about going up to advance. And of course, that was a mental block for me. I couldn't. So I didn't go up, and then I spent probably another 2 or 3 days that next season, my next season, where I just couldn't get out of my own head. I just advanced was this thing that you just was kind of unattainable or beyond me. But Dennis was like, "Hey man, let's just go out." The third time I was there, he's like, "You're ready to get out of intermediate. You're running decent times." So he took me out in an advanced session and just kind of let me go and stayed behind me. And we got passed by some people, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Like it was, it wasn't that I didn't feel like it was so far beyond me that I couldn't be out there with those guys. And so anyways, the next time I went out, he bumped me up to A. And as you know, riding with the A guys, they're so good. And yeah, I mean, I was not anywhere close to the fastest guy out there. I mean, I was getting past a lot and stuff, but it was always those things where, you get past and it's like, well, let me see if I can just kind of keep this guy in sight for a few corners. You don't want to do too much too quick. But as I through a couple of A days, I was able to keep more and more people in sight for longer and longer. And of course, you're not even thinking about it, but the lap times were dropping pretty significantly each time I went out, significantly being a second or two here and there. Until I just, the rest of that summer I spent kind of in the A group and just got really comfortable there. Um, and then how I got into coaching was it was probably towards the end of that second season. Dennis called me on a Sunday afternoon. I was sitting down watching a football game, and he called me and he's like, "Hey, you planning on coming tomorrow?" And I'm like, "No, I wasn't planning on coming." And he's like, "Well, like we're really short on coaches for tomorrow. This could be like an amazing opportunity." And I was like, "I've been here for 2 years. I mean, I don't know how to coach." And he's like, "Well, you're good with people, and you would be in novice, so you would just kind of hang out and take a group, and just the lines and the basics and stuff, and we kind of take you under our wing." And so I was like, wow, I was kind of blown away. And Dennis is like, there's no promises, but if you do a good job and you like it, we can talk to Mike. And it was Todd Snyder at the time that was kind of running the school down there. And he said, we'll talk to Mike and Todd and just, see if maybe you want to become a coach. And so I went and did the day, had just a blast, man. I had a good group of guys. They were all sponges and just had a ton of fun. And so the rest is kind of history. I kind of became a part of the coaching crew down there and did that for like 10 seasons. Yeah,
I guess, right?
yeah. Mike introduced me to
Sam?
Holly and yeah, thanks. And little did I know at the time it was going to be their last year they were doing lean, but brought me in and did a year with Sam, Holly, and of course Mike was there, kind of helping out a lot. Um, and yeah, then once lean, Sam and Holly decided not to do lean. There was kind of things kind of up in the air, but then Mike kind of worked stuff out with Nelson's and those guys, and to kind of direct fast tracks. So yeah, just kind of came on board with them, and still going strong.
Awesome. So, what do you what do you like the most about doing the coaching gig?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many things to it. I mean, I like the brotherhood and sisterhood. I mean, there's I just it's a great family atmosphere as far as just my uncle raced did track days and stuff. He had a Z06 and did BMW club and Porsche club. And it's not that those were bad, but there was kind of like just a competitiveness to it, and kind of like a standoffness. That's not even a word, but just people were kind of like they were friendly, but
Guarded, right?
I,
About everything they do because it was so competitive.
yeah, just protective, and just not that they wouldn't help you out, but it just felt a little bit standoffish, just not real community based. Not that the people were mean, it had a different feel. Like when you go to the track with the motorcycle guys and girls, man, it's like a family. Everybody's willing to help everybody out. I think you talked about this in Chris's interview. Was like
Yeah.
racing. If you can help somebody, even if you're still going to try to help them get better. And if you need a tool, you need a part, you need advice, you need somebody to help wrench a bike for you, whatever. It's just the community is great. I mean, it's just people all come together and
Yeah, it's strange that like, you know, because you talked about it in the car road racing, and I've experienced it in like, you know, drag racing stuff or other areas, and it's like I don't know what it is about like motorcycle road racing, but it tends to lean more towards that. At least it seems. It's just I don't know what it is about it, but it's very strange. But it's awesome that it's that way because couldn't have a better community to be around. You know.
yeah, 100%. I mean, so that's one aspect of it, which is just great. You feel like you kind of belong to this really just great community. But then it's also, you're out there. I mean, it's you all. It's hardly ever you're going to have a bad day at the track. Yeah, I love being at the track. I love being around all the people and the bikes and just all that stuff. But of course, then when you're working with students, it's so rewarding when you kind of get connected up with a couple people in your group or even an entire group that's just kind of soaking it in, and they're making progress, and it's really clicking, and they're asking questions, and they're getting better. And man, it's just, you feel like, wow, it's just cool to be a part of that whole scene. It feels like a privilege to kind of be a part of all that, and just even to be a small piece of it.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's something that like I think I've talked about in most almost all the other interviews is that like you know it used to be kind of like getting excited about my lap times or sometimes getting disappointed, you know, comparing myself to other people. And when I started coaching, it kind of like leveled out of like, okay, I'm comfortable where I'm at and I get more joy out of seeing other people progress more than myself now. You know, it's like I just get a little more fulfillment out of it, you know? Let's see here. Oh, I think we lost him. Yeah, we're back now. Lost you for a second. I think I lost your audio. Hold on one second. I think did I lose your audio? Are you back?
I thought I
Yeah,
was.
there we
Can you
go.
hear
Yeah,
me?
I got you back now. Yep.
Sorry, I had a call come in. I had to send it to voicemail, but I
No
kind of
worries.
interrupted.
No worries.
Sorry.
So, anyways, a couple other questions I usually ask. One would be like, and you know, you could take your experience from when you were, you know, still like a customer or somebody just doing track days, but also, you know, as a coach, what do you think is like one of the harder, or one of the things that is hardest for people to get that from novice into intermediate?
Yeah, I mean, I think most you'll probably agree with this too. I mean, the toughest thing is mental. Um, people just there's this. I don't know. It was kind of the same thing with me actually going from intermediate to advanced. You just don't think you're there. You don't think you're. It's I don't know. There's especially with novice. There's kind of like this safeness to it. You're kind of out there with a lot of coaches, even when you're doing kind of the open track laps in the afternoon and stuff. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of, the passing rules are pretty, tight as far as, not a lot of passing. You got to be only on straightaways. And so I don't know. There's this thing where you just there's a it's I think mentally for people there's a huge jump going from novice up into intermediate, and in some sense there is. I mean, you're not doing a lot of follow the leader. You're kind of on your own. You got to make sure you're hitting your marks and all those things. But I mean, there's so many people that I'll tell, hey, based on your times, based on me following you, the lines that you're riding and the body position, and you're very smooth and you're consistent and all those kind of things. And you can tell them that 3 or 4 times, but they'll just keep coming back to novice just because I think mentally they just have a hard time believing that they're ready to take that step.
Yeah, and I think there's almost like there's two mindsets of people that you know come and start doing the track, and I've never really seen an in between. It's always either like that mindset that you kind of explained there of like, you know, a little bit scared or unsure and not ready to take those steps. And then there's the people that their first day, they're like, I need out of here. I need out of novice. I shouldn't be in this and whatever. And those are generally the people that have the wildest lines. I mean, very rarely, if ever, have I've ever seen anybody that I'm like, yeah, why are you even in this class? You know what I mean? But yeah, I think, and so you kind of touched on a little bit, like your intermediate to advanced, you think it's almost similar thing. It's just the mental side of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, but you're right. That's one aspect of it, and there's a lot of people like that. But you're right. You've also got people that come into novice, and they're like, I've been street riding. I can, I've gone X number of miles an hour on my bike on the freeway, and they are just way overconfident, and they don't understand. And you're right. Those are the people immediately what's going to happen when they get out there. They're blowing corners all over the place. Their lines are terrible.
Up the coach's
And
butt.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Gunning it on the straightaways, camping in the corners, and just all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely that mindset, and that can almost be just as hard to kind of bring those people back. Usually, you talking about it doesn't bring them back. It's usually something that happens out on the track that spooks them a little bit or puckers them up a few times, and then all of a sudden they kind of like start to come back and be like, oh, maybe there's something more to this that I need to learn before I'm going to go out and start showing the advanced guys how to ride.
uh, what would you say out of all your time coaching? What's like one moment that really has always stuck with you? You know, kind of like I don't know if you want to call it a highlight or whatever, something that will always stand in your head that you're like, yeah, just will always remember that time, or could it be a particular person or whatever it is?
Yeah, as you know, I mean, doing this for I don't know, 15 or 16 seasons. You have a lot of them, but I'll follow suit with Chris Johnston. I mean, he was pretty new to track riding, and I was injured, and so I kind of worked with him over the course of the summer. I was helping Mike out. I was teaching the novice school, but I couldn't ride. And so I was trying to just kind of take a little bit of burden off Mike, off other coaches, so they didn't have to worry about the classroom stuff. They could just go out, ride, work with their students. And so one of the people that was hungry and just picking my brain all the time because I was sitting there between classes and stuff, and he's up there, just chatting it up with me. And so just trying to give him as much knowledge as I've got, which isn't a ton, but it's some. And so he was just gleaning it. I know he learned a lot from you, from Rob Hancock, from others. And so just lots of stuff. But the cool thing with this whole thing is just watching his progression. He went from kind of being this uncertain, wide-eyed, loving life, but just not completely sure about stuff. Dude, he's faster than I am now, and I love that. I love that he's getting quicker and quicker, and I'm in my 50s, and I'm kind of on the other side of things. I don't race anymore, and I'm still obviously coaching and still love riding, but he's kind of on the upward trajectory, and I'm kind of on the downside, just not caring, like you said, about lap times and all that. I chase those. He's kind of on. He's progressing, so he's getting quicker and quicker, and there's some pride there.
Yeah.
This, like when you somebody and you see them. I mean, the stuff that he's doing I think he's on a 2003 Gixxer 750. And,
Right.
I mean, the pace that he's riding that thing, and I've let him ride my R1 a couple of times, and he's just got to get. And I think you've let him ride your RS 660 and some
Yeah.
other things, and so like it's just fun watching people like that who are true students, who just love riding, love trying to get better, soak in anything that you're going to give them. And then, you look out there and you're like, yeah, I can't even keep up with the guy anymore.
Yeah. And it's
I'm
like,
well, he's like pulling away from me, and I'm like, awesome. I love it. I
yeah,
love it.
that's like the ideal mindset for like a student to come in is like his type of mindset of like, being humbled and being like, what, give me all your knowledge, give me everything that you got. And like, cause that's how you, progress quickly is by being humbled and taking advice. And, one of the questions that we got was, that someone wanted for us to ask is, do we learn from each other? And I covered this with pretty much everybody so far, and you know, yeah, of course we do, right? I mean, I learn, from other coaches either by asking questions because I see them do something certain that I'm like, man, they're, pulling away from me here or there or whatever, or or just seeing another coach on track do something, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow them a little bit and try that out or whatever it is. What's something that you've took away from another coach?
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint one particular thing, like whether it's just not being able to get a corner because you can't find a site marker. And then all of a sudden you talk to somebody and they're like, oh, I use this. And you start to use that. And all of a sudden it's like the corner that you struggled and struggled and struggled with has now you've kind of been able to figure it out because another coach, because you ask and another coach was willing to help you. Just the other thing too is, I mean, you know, there's so much knowledge, whether it's you or Mike Malachar or you got like Mark Young, Rob Hancock, just all these people, like whether it's suspension setting, like I can go and talk to like Rob and tell him like, hey, this is or Mark or whoever, this is kind of what I'm feeling, this is what I'm struggling with, and they'll know right away. Oh, you need to, two clicks of, take two clicks out of the preload or whatever, and just all those little things, like it's just there's just such a wealth of knowledge. So it's just you're just kind of this, you're constantly refining and reforming and just figuring little things out that wind up making a difference here and there, not only to make you go faster, which is not as big of a deal to me anymore, but just to help me be safer and smoother and to know my bike better, to get around the track better, wherever I might be at. So yeah, it's just there's so many things. And again, it's just that coaching community where anybody's willing to help you at any time with anything. It's just really really cool. But yeah, I think probably obviously for whether it was racing or coaching or just being a rider myself, I can't, there's so many coaches that I've learned from and gleaned from over the years. I mean, I would say more than anything else. I mean, maybe seat time, because that obviously is important for everybody, but there's just been so many coaches that have helped me so much, to make me a better rider.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Um, so what you've coached for Mid Ohio and stuff and whatnot, and you've obviously done track days with other organizations and whatnot. But what do you feel that kind of sets Fast Tracks apart from other organizations?
Yeah, I mean, um, a number of different things. One, I think the atmosphere is great. I mean, I think the coaches are very, very accessible, for one, and that's not always the case with all the other programs. There are some great programs out there where the coaches are very accessible, and then there's some where they just seem like they're not real approachable. I think Fast Tracks coaches are. I mean, when Mike gets up there and says, "Hey, we're there for the students," like we really are. Like we're there to ride, yes, and we want to have fun and all that stuff, but we take what we're there for seriously. I mean, you're out videoing people, and anytime you're not out on the track, well, and even a lot of times when you are, you're helping people. You're either talking to them, you're helping them with their bike, you're out there helping them with lines on the track, and I think that's a difference maker because students feel like they're getting their money's worth, both from the relationship with the coaches, but also the program itself. I mean, I won't name any other organizations, but there are organizations that they kind of give you a 20-minute spiel and cut you loose. And for some people, that's great. That's what they want. And but I don't know, even for those people, I don't know if that's the safest, best way to send people out who are just kind of getting used to track riding. And so you don't want to just have nothing but classroom and nothing but instruction, because people want to have fun too. But yeah, I mean, whenever I'm teaching novice school, I mean, I always say, hey, we got three objectives there, right? The first one, and most importantly, is keep everybody safe. Like that is more than anything we know, for coaches and for any rider, anybody going down. That's that's a bad day. We don't want that happening. So keep people safe. The next thing is for people to have fun. We want people to have fun. And then the third thing would be, hey, if we can teach you a few things along the way, then great, and we'll give you some stuff to work on, and stuff like that. But I really think it's an all encompassing, well rounded, very accessible, um, thorough, comprehensive program. I think, and I don't know that there's a ton of. I've been to a number of different other schools. I think they do certain things well and other things not so well, but I feel like I don't know that there's a ton of holes in Fast Track's program. I think you get plenty of riding, you get plenty of coaching, you get plenty of knowledge. The coaches are accessible. Yeah, I don't know, and I'm a little biased because I'm a part of it, but
Yeah.
just being with stations and being with being a part around this for a number of years, I think Fast Tracks kind of has a pretty good formula.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Have the same sentiment with, it just a lot of times it depends where you're at in novice. Some of the people that do the novice group quite a few times, after they've done novice quite a few times, maybe some of those other organizations that don't have as much structure and stuff could be beneficial to them because it's, more open track. But, the learning part of it, I think, is, a big key part of Fast Tracks, the way that we have our structure set up. And like you said, to keep everybody safe, learn a lot of things during that time. And, some of these other organizations just don't have that type of structure where leads to be beneficial to, the skill set and stuff. But
For you though, like if you think about it, you guys have been kind of customizing some things even in our own program,
yeah,
where you've had some fast guys in novice who are kind of on the verge of going to intermediate, but maybe want to do another day. So what you kind of do, or any one of us could. You guys have started to kind of just say, hey, we're going to take these 3 or 4 people and run them in group one in novice, and we're not really going to do the classroom. They've done that same classroom, and they've learned all that stuff maybe 4 or 5 times. And so it's kind of like, hey, I'm going to work with these guys kind of on my own. And that's great, because that kind of covers where it's almost too much information, or people aren't ready to go to intermediate, but they've already heard all this. And really what they need is they need to work on some fine tuning. They need to work on seat time. They need to work on a little bit of increased speed. And so if we can take our first group or two and kind of do almost customize their novice experience before they're getting ready to go up to intermediate, which you guys have started doing, which is, I think it's fantastic.
I'm glad you feel that way. I wanted to try it that one day and ask Mike and stuff, and the people that were in that, they enjoyed it. I had a stipulation of like, you had to have at least done the novice class at least 2 times, because one time, okay, there might be some things you forget. 2 times, could be pretty much settled in, and the structure and what we're going to do, and we're still following those basic structure when we go out there. But we've covered the basic stuff that we cover in our structure, and now it's like, okay, what are those things that you're struggling on that will, we need to focus on, that will help you bridge that gap to intermediate. And a lot of times what I found out is, I'm like, we'll do our first meeting and say, okay, what questions do you have? What are you struggling with? And a lot of times when somebody asks a question, one of the other people will be like, yeah, I was the same way. Like, I have the same issue. So a lot of times, these questions that come up that maybe they didn't ask before or whatever, we can cover with these 3 people. It's a little bit more intimate setting, but like having that almost like, middle ground structure within that to try to get that, bridge that gap. And so far it's worked. And maybe, I'll have to talk to Malakar or something to see if that's something that we could kind of almost try to make some kind of standard with. But, obviously have some kind of um, rules or guidelines with, like, okay, well, if one of those people is they've done a lot of track, there's only done with us, they've never done it. That's probably not a good idea because they haven't went through our structure, right? So, but yeah, so far so good on it, and it's provided some decent results. So I've been pretty happy with it, and yeah, we'll see how that goes, I guess. But what were you? Do you have anything else to say on that? If you were kind of mid,
No, no,
okay.
said well, and little things like that. I know you've done some video work with people, and
Chris
I
does
know
a lot. Chris, he does a lot, and it's awesome.
there's, I mean, and it's not that other organizations don't do that, and even these little enhancements where you kind of separate out one of the groups in novice for just a few of the people that are ready, like those are all things where again, it just makes that well-rounded program, like, and we're willing to pivot a little bit and to try to, we're really trying to cater to the customers' needs and really meet them where they're at. And I don't know that other track organizations go to those kind of lengths or to do those try to things to really kind of customize and tailor experiences for people to, that specifically to even smaller and smaller groups of people.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's kind of cool with our organization because it's, I don't know, I don't want to put it a wrong way or a weird way or something like that, but like, you know, Mike running it, he's pretty open to suggestions and stuff, and to kind of let coaches have some input on like, hey, this would be cool to do this or try this, and he's pretty open with that stuff. And a lot of these things aren't coming from like a director standpoint or whatever of like we're gonna try this now. No, it's kind of like someone saw a gap somewhere and goes, hey, it would be kind of interesting to try this. Let's see if it works or not to improve things or maybe provide a benefit somewhere. And I think that's one thing that's kind of really cool about our organization as well, that the people that coach and come can have a little bit of freedom to like give some input and ideas that could benefit the whole organization.
Yeah, 100%.
So out of all the groups that you coach, like novice, intermediate, or advanced, which do you, I would say prefer, but like, I guess prefer, I don't know how you want to put it, but like, what's the most satisfactory for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's changed over time. I mean, I think when I was first coaching down at Mid Ohio for years, and we had a great community. There was a ton of great coaches down there. Yeah, still are some good coaches there. But yeah, I think when I first got started, I mean, it was almost like you're kind of coaching novice, um, not as you're it's almost like you're willing to coach novice so that you can go out and run in advanced. And that's kind of how I started. Like it wasn't that I wasn't enthusiastic, it wasn't that I wasn't pouring everything into it, but man, I mean, really what I loved and treasured was those days where it was almost like, hey man, just go control ride in A and you can just kind of go out and have fun. And so, but as I've gotten older and things have shifted, um, you know, I don't know. I guess there's a much better balance. I mean, uh, I like going out and playing an A, but I also shred my tires up and so it costs me more money. And so you start looking at all these different things. And I love working with the students. And you get to a point where I'll be 52 here in a month or so, and there's nothing left for me to prove. I'm just out there to try to help other people, and I get a kick out of that, like we talked about earlier. Probably the group that's kind of a little bit crazy, as you know, is the intermediate group, because there's people out there that probably should be going up to advanced, but just either mentally aren't ready or just aren't quite there. And then you've got people coming in from novice, and they're kind of all over the place. I think it's not that and I think in advance you can just kind of go out and ride. Everyone's going to take care of each other. You can just kind of go and have fun. But you're kind of there. For me especially, most of the A guys are as good as I am, and so where we can help each other and talk and have fun and stuff. It's there's not a ton I can do for those guys. Not that I wouldn't help them in any way I could. Intermediate, it's you got to stay focused because they're it's kind of where people it's the biggest learn curve group. So I enjoy that, but you just got to be mentally not that you ever lose focus, but you know what I mean. When you're
Yeah.
out there, you got to just be on your A game because anything can happen at any time. And then of course novice, it's just you kind of I love working with the people. So man, I guess it's funny here. It's a long way to answer the question, but I guess I kind of enjoy all three for different reasons. Um, yeah, I don't know. I definitely earlier on when I was in coaching, getting to go out on an advanced day, which was sometimes rare, was just that was fantastic. Now when Mike's like, hey, where do you want to be, and I don't care. Like I'll say that and I mean it. I'm not just trying to be polite. I'm not just trying to be like oh well I want to no, I don't care. I'll do whatever he wants me to do, and I'll enjoy whether I'm in a intermediate or novice or even teaching novice school. I enjoy it all.
Yeah, I think sometimes it depends on, like, for instance, we could use Chris as a very good example. Like you coached him in novice, and then you could continue to work with him in intermediate, and then continue to work with him in advance. And that's with a lot of people, and I think that's when I've had most of my enjoyment is like, okay, I coach somebody in novice, and now I have an intermediate day, and that person's like, hey, where are you at? It's always like, hey, where are you at today? Oh, I'm going to be in advanced, but tomorrow I'll be in intermediate. Oh, tomorrow, can you work with me? Okay. And then this person that you've helped in novice, they have so much trust in you and enjoyed the way that, your type of coaching or your personality, whatever it is. And, everybody's kind of got their own little idiosyncrasies and ways they do stuff, and any pretty much everybody's approachable and stuff. But if you've worked with them before, they tend to want to come back and work with you again and either be intermediate or advanced. And I always liked intermediate the most when I first started because the pace was not too slow, and there was more to work on because it was more one-on-one. I don't mind doing the novice as much anymore. I'm enjoying that a lot. And like you said, advanced kind of it gets to a point where most of the customers that come that are advanced, they come a lot. They know the stuff. There's not so many there. Most of the time when that is, it's somebody that's going from intermediate into advanced, and they feel like they need a little help here or there. And I like those things. But yeah, it's I guess it just depends on what you're doing and who with. If it's always that was always my favorite thing is, like I said, is just somebody's like, hey, where are you working today? Because if I'd like for you to give me a toe here or toe there or whatever and work on some stuff. And so it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as I can get to help somebody, it's go away with a good day and have fun. And but yeah, tires. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Advance, you're just killing tires for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would agree with everything you said. Like, yeah, just the progression. And like you said, too, it could depend on the day. Sometimes, yeah, it depends on a lot of things. But I think I could be happy. I'm pretty content wherever I'm going to be at. Because there's always, if I'm an A, I'm just out having fun, just kind of ripping around. If I'm in intermediate, I'm usually helping. Like you said, there's always people there asking for you to ride with them for a session or whatever, or help them get through a corner differently. And then of course, novice, you're working with your group all day. So yeah, I think there's good things about each group.
Yeah, and it's nice, like, if you're doing advanced one day and you go out and you're giving some spirited rides, you get exhausted pretty quick. So I like having a day. Like, novice isn't as physically demanding. It's mentally demanding, but it's not as physically demanding. So it's not bad there to take a rest for a day too. So when you start getting, I'm not as old as you are, but I probably feel that way. So, one day in advance, I'm like, yeah, I'm cool. Be all right.
Yeah.
Just chill, not be as physical on it. But
Yeah, that's 100%, man. I'm so out of shape, and I'm lucky because I'm on a cheater bike, and have to ride it quite so hard, and it still goes pretty fast. But yeah, if I tried to do 2 advanced days at this point, I'd be pretty sore after that first day, and yeah, I don't know whether I'd even physically be able to do a full second day just riding hard session after session.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's exhausting, man. Especially a leader bike is it's a lot to handle all day. So,
Yeah.
um, out of the whole track or whatever, where do you see what part of the track do you see that most people struggle, like on average, that people struggle with the most? Maybe either novice or intermediate, could be advanced, whatever. Like, we have people that advanced riders that, I mean, even I've had Moto A guys that come in, but they've never ridden the track. And what's the one part of the track that, on average to you, do you think that people struggle with the most?
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, for Nelson's is about 1.6 miles around, and it's a pretty flowing track. But there's a lot of trickiness to it. Especially when you're trying to learn it. And so I would say, there's people that struggle with the whole kind of 1, 2 corners, 1, 2, 3, just getting that kind of whole section right. And then, not a lot, but I think that can be a little bit tricky. The next part is the whole, like, I think really the entry and then working your way through turn 4. I think is tricky for a lot of people, and actually there's a few lines I think running through there that can work. But a lot of people don't realize how long that turn is, and they wind up coming out of it wrong, or they go into it wrong, or they're riding through it too far to the outside. I mean, or they'll come in way too like close to the inside, and then they kind of get lost when they get into the turn because they don't know exactly where they're going to be at. I mean, but that was a tricky turn for me for several years where I just couldn't really figure out a super comfortable way to get through there. So I was just trying lots of different things, and then obviously, making sure you hit your apex coming onto the back straight and not pushing wide there and having to cut throttle. And then probably the biggest thing is people turn in, I think was it 13 coming onto the front straight. The track kind of goes out and then comes back in as you go onto that front straight. And if you don't kind of come around the corner when you apex to be able to get on the throttle and come straight up out onto the front straight, you drift out. And so you're drifting out as the track is drifting in, and it becomes kind of a mess there for people. And for whatever reason, that's probably the biggest struggle that the novice people have that I've worked with. It's not the only place. Obviously, we've talked about some others, but I think people just getting that corner and being able to kind of get back up on the meat of the tire and get on the throttle going onto that front straight to get the speed out of there without drifting out right where the track is coming back in. I think that I have lots of people, and it doesn't matter like how much you work with them or how much you show them. There's just like this proclivity for people to kind of just apex that and lean in too early and just not be able to get the drive out of the front straight. So that's probably, but there's tricky parts all around that track. Once you get them, it's great. It's a fast flowing track, that. But yeah, there's some tricky parts to it. But I would say turn 13 is probably where I see the people struggle the most. And when I say that, they struggle in other areas, but they seem to overcome those things, maybe except for turn 4. People struggle with that and can't seem to figure it out. But yeah, it's they just have a hard time really figuring out where to kind of tip in, where to apex, and then how to get out of that corner.
Yeah, I forget who I was talking with. I think it was like, as far as like novice, where we've had less and less crashes in novice, like we don't have a ton, but most of the ones that do happen are generally 13. Overwhelmingly, I would say maybe 4 sometimes, but they're not like hard crashes or anything. It's usually like they run off at 4. But 13 is usually the one where most people actually crash, and it's, getting on the throttle too early, or like you said, kind of running wide off the track or whatever it may be. But yeah, I kind of agree with that. I would think like more the advanced guys, at least in my opinion, or like guys that are, they're good riders and stuff, and they come here. They've never been to the track. The turn that catches them out the most is 4. They just, it's something about that corner. It's not that they can't run that corner. It's just being fast through that corner. It's either the entry point or whatever. But yeah, I would agree with what you said there.
Yeah, 4 is my biggest nemesis at Nelson's. I mean, it's just, I mean, I've figured it out, and I do okay getting through there. But if that's probably the slowest corner on the track for me, I just can't get through there as quick as I want to, and I've been working at it for years. So
yeah, that's. I mean, I'm not trying to be like braggadocious or anything by any means, but like that's where, at least where when racing, I'm usually catching people there on entry because of my line choice or whatever. And one of the things is I haven't never crashed at Nelson, period, whatever what is a knock, but like if people crash in 4, it's over. It's very, very hard to come back from that, because it's a weird thing. You get too far out and you're done once you get too far outside on that. But yeah, I've built up enough confidence in that, where that corner I feel very good at, so hopefully that'll continue.
maybe there and show me how to go through there.
Yeah, I'll show you my line. I don't know if it'll work for. I showed Chris. He's starting to use it now, because we compared data and stuff, and like it just entry speed into that was, I don't know how many more mile an hour I carry into it, and it's different. Like he's like, well, Malachar didn't do that line and blah, blah, blah. And I talked to him, and Malachar's like, well, why are you doing that? If you do this way, and I tried it, supposedly the way that the particular race line it just didn't work for me. Wasn't comfortable with that line, tried it quite a bit. And anybody gives me advice, I'll give it a shot. It just didn't end up working out for me. And, it may not work out for you, my line either, but the visuals for my line are really easy to get to, the way just following some things on the track, and yeah, I'll show them to you for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's one play. Like there's a lot of corners and a lot of places on different tracks where there is only one real line.
Right.
But one corner where I've seen a number of different people kind of approach that, who are fast and who know what they're doing, being one of them. But different people approach that corner differently and get through there on some different lines and go just as quick as somebody on a different line. So it's a unique corner, and it is, it's one of the corners where I don't know that there is a pure and simple one line through there. I clearly there's not.
Yeah, I would say definitely not. I think I spoke to this before maybe 2 times, but like watching Robbie's line through it, Robbie No, and oh my gosh, well, I'm thinking Josh Hayes, when he was up there in the endurance round, he takes the same line that Robbie was running, he was running. And that line, compared to my line, Robbie's faster in general, and obviously Hayes is, but, I was behind Robbie one time through 4, and he pulled away from me. And it could be, I mean, obviously skill set and confidence and stuff, but, just seeing that, I'm like, that line's wild to me, but it's super fast. They both would get way, way outside of the corner. The first quarter of that turn, they're way on the bank, and I don't even want to be out there. But it just shows you, like, there are several lines through there, and I would say it has to be with if you're comfortable running those lines, that you could be fast on them. But yeah, I mean there's not one particular line I think that's legitimately faster than the other. It just depends, but I would agree with that. What would be some advice that you'd give somebody who hasn't done a track day? They're thinking about it. What's some advice you'd give them for wanting to do their first track day?
Yeah, I would just say it's worth it. Like there are people look at it and they're like, man, the bike prep, what is that going to look like? And obviously, you can go on the Fast Tracks website. It's not as much as you would think.
Right.
Uh, Lights, things like that, and then you don't have to buy a $2,000 Alpine Star race suit. I mean, you can for novice school, you don't have to you got to wear boots and gauntlet gloves and different things, and you got to have a suit to ride in, but you can't come in jeans and stuff like that. But you don't have to change your coolant. There's you don't have to wire your bike all up. So I would say, and the other thing too is that it feels like going from track riding from street riding to track riding. Again, there's an intimidation factor there, especially if you've watched like races at a track and stuff, and you look at what those guys do. But it's a whole different world to come do a novice track day. That it's follow the leader until you get to the afternoon. You go as fast as you comfortably want to go. The coaches and the program does everything they can to keep you safe. And so, I mean, I would say if you're thinking about it, you're not going to ever have more fun safely on a motorcycle than you are doing a track day. And, we talked about this at the beginning of school. All the things that you have to focus on and worry about on the street, pretty much all those things. There's no gravel on our track. There's no oncoming traffic. There's no mailboxes to hit. There's not some old lady pulling out of a parking lot who doesn't see you. Like everybody's riding the same way. Like there's corner workers, you got coaches. Like it's as safe as you can get, and you're going to be able to kind of ride whatever motorcycle you come in on. And this. I mean, we have a lot of sport bikes, but we have cruisers and enduros and all kinds of stuff that comes out there. And you actually you're going to be able to put that bike through its paces in a way that you never have before. You're actually going to be able to ride that thing. But the other thing too is that just know that I'm no matter how good we get, and I mean, unless we're being stupid, we're never going to be able to outride the equipment that we're on. I mean, there's always incidents that can happen, but most of the time, people are like, oh man, if I lean any more than that, and you're like, well, wait a second, your knees off the ground. Like, it's like, so your tires, your brakes, your bike, like those things are built to run. And so, yeah, I would just say, don't be afraid to come out and do a track day. It's going to be one of the funnest days on two wheels that you'll ever have. And it's going to be, I say any day on the track is going to be safer than a day on the street. There's so many things that happen that are out of your control on the street. Usually if something happens on a track, it's you're the cause of whatever happened to you because you did something dumb or you weren't thinking or whatever. And like you said, in novice, we don't have a lot of people go down. I mean, most days we have hardly any incidents in novice, and or in other groups for that matter. I mean, I think that the programs run really well, but yeah, I would just say, man, if you're thinking about it at all, you got to do it. The worst thing about doing it is that you're not going to want to just do it once. You want to start hitting all kinds of other stuff, but definitely one of the funnest things you can do is go out and do a track day.
Yeah, I always tell people, I'm like, yeah, come out and do one, but the only thing I have to warn you is like you might have to get a second job because you'll just want to keep doing it. One of the other things
that's right.
I try to tell people too is like, because you get to go out and kind of push your bike over the limits that you normally would ride on the street and stuff, you get to know your bike a lot better and its capabilities, which really, people go, well, I'm never going to race and do anything. So this is, doing a track day really would be no benefit to me. And I always say, no, it's a huge benefit. When you start to know your bike more and the capabilities of it by riding on track, it really prepares you a lot more for things that would happen on the street. There's just things that you learn that will correlate to street riding just for reactions of if, something happens, you got to cut out of the way, that you're more prepared for making evasive maneuver or something like that because you know what the capability of your bike is and the way the brakes work and things like that, that you haven't gotten to test the bike at that level. So there's always something you could take away from it, even if you never do it again, is just and you keep riding street is just to be able to see the potential of what the bike can do, which makes you safer on the street for reacting to those things. And you learn about body positioning and throttle control and all those different things.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you know this. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff you can bring from the street onto the track. I mean, other than just your basic knowledge of riding a motorcycle, which you obviously need before you come to the track. But there's so much that you can take, like you said, even beyond just like, knowing your bike and understanding, what like its capacity is and your capabilities are, but even just mental stuff like, usually when you're riding on the street, you kind of have a certain distance because there's cars in front of you and all that kind of stuff. But like one of the things that blew me away, and we talk about this every time we teach school, but I remember, I'll never forget Mike Malachar talking about this when I was back in novice schools when I was, years ago, but he was talking about the back straight at Mid Ohio. And he's like, listen, you get up to 140, 150 miles an hour down that back straight. And if you're only looking like, 200 feet in front of you, you are literally looking at the past because by the time that your brain synapses can fire for you to react, you're already past that point when you're going that fast. And so just stuff like trying to focus further out ahead of you, like taking that onto the street. You're like you were talking about, if you got to react, you're looking at the car in front of you and you have to react, you're already there. Whereas opposed to you learning to kind of look through things or look beyond things to be able to anticipate what's happening way down the road, just things like that. And there's also, it's the bike, it's the mentality, it's just all the different things that you can take, like you said, body position and just how you set your bike up and stuff. You can learn all that at the track and then be able to ride better and more comfortably and more capably out on the street. So yeah, like you said, I mean, the things that you pick up on a track day, you will use riding wherever you're going to ride for the rest of the time that you're riding. Yeah, I think not only are you going to have a ton of fun, but there's going to be some really valuable information and input that you're going to get to be able to kind of do your street riding with.
Yeah. I can't remember who it was. It's a long time ago. Told me they're like, I was asking them about riding at the track before I did, and they were like, man, I rode for 15 years on the street, and, I had 15 years of riding experience. And when I did my first track day, I realized I had 1 year riding experience 15 times because you're not learning anything new. You're just keep rotating the same stuff and you're not learning anything. It's just, you may have learned a thing or two from a buddy that could be the wrong thing, but you're just doing, street riding things and whatever. There's not a lot of information there, or you could look on YouTube and some of it might be okay information, some not. But, when you actually get real instruction from people who actually know what they're doing and we have a structure, you learn more in that one day than you did over, 15 years of riding on the street or whatever.
100%. Yeah. And this, that a lot of times what you're learning on the bike and on the track is almost, it's counter to what your like mind would tell you to do. Like when if you're going around a corner and you're starting to drift to the outside, like what do most people want to do? They want to grab brake, which is going to stand you up and guarantee that you're going to go right off the road. Whereas at the track, it's kind of like, hey, if you look like you're running out of room, you actually want to weight your inside peg, give it a little bit of throttle, and a lot of times you're going to come through that corner and you're going to pucker up and you're going to have to come in and change your shorts, but you're going to make it through. Whereas like most of your street stuff is you're going to read differently. And so it's almost also reprogramming your brain to do things that your brain maybe wouldn't naturally do. But as you work on the track and you see that those things work, you can take those things onto the road where you're almost reprogramming your brain in a way to do things differently, which may save you on the road just like it would on the track. Whereas if you don't have that experience or you don't get that knowledge or you don't go through that training, you're just going to keep doing what you normally do, which is if you're starting to drift wide, you're going to grab brake and then you're guaranteeing yourself that you're going to go off the road.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean,
is there, before we wrap up, is there anything you want to cover that we haven't covered or something that you feel is important to tell anybody that's either, riding the track or somebody new coming to the track or whatever? Anything that you want to cover?
No, I mean, the one thing I would say is just when you come to the track, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like, just have fun, soak up what you can, especially for the novice. I mean, I try to, we go over a lot of stuff,
Yep.
and baby steps. Work on one thing at a time, or just don't try to do too much at one time. Just come, relax, have fun, soak up the information, but do not put too much pressure on yourself. Always ride within your means. And because if you're riding kind of desperate or nervous or frustrated, whatever it is, that's not good, and you're not learning and you're not having any fun. So yeah, probably the most important thing, man, if you're going to come out and do a track day, just don't be anxious. Just come have fun, relax, and just take baby steps, and yeah, you're going to have a blast, and it'll be a great day.
Actually, you were just when you were talking about stuff, just brought up a question I think that I don't think I've covered, but I think I need to cover. People who are getting evaluated for a bump, either it be from novice to intermediate or intermediate to advanced, what do you say? I have my personal thing that I would say, which I'm sure it's probably very close to what you'll say, but what would you tell them if you were to talk to somebody before they went to do their eval? Let's say you're like, hey, man, you're going to go out and do your eval for intermediate. So you're going out with Chris Johnson. You're going to go out and ride with him an intermediate to get your eval. What would you tell that person before they go out for their eval?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I try to impress the most, and I think probably the biggest misconception, is people think that going fast is the key. Like, trying to get around the track as fast as you possibly can. And I tell people, I say, listen, I don't care how fast you are, and neither do the guys in the next group up. What's going to matter to them is that you are where you're supposed to be, that you're predictable, and that you're consistent. And I said, if you're desperately slow, I'm going to tell you you're not fast enough to go up. But I tell people 99% of the time, that is not why people don't make it up to the next class when I'm next level when I'm evaluating them. It's because they're trying to override, and they wind up blowing 6 corners every lap.
Yep.
Because they're trying to impress me with how fast they can get around the track. And I tell them, I said, I do not care. I said, to a certain point, you have to be within a reasonable pace to go up. But I said, if you weren't already somewhat there, we wouldn't even be doing this evaluation. I've already told you that you're not. So the fact that we're going out and doing this evaluation, you've already got enough speed. What I want to see is the smoothness, the consistency, the predictability. I want to know that you know how to get around this track safely for yourself and for the other riders that you're going to be riding with when you get up into that next group. So I think you're probably going to have some similar things, but that's the biggest thing I try to impress on riders who are trying to get to the next level. It is so not about speed. It's about so much of the other stuff.
It's 1,000% what I was going to say, because I don't know how many times that I've been like, okay, hey, everything looks really good. Your lines look fantastic. I want to go ahead and we'll get you an eval. You're going to go with so-and-so. The coach comes back and goes, they blew like 6 corners. And I'm like, yeah. Okay, they went out because they're nervous. They wanted to make sure they had the speed. Dude, like if you just rode like you did in front of me in novice, you would have got your bump. But you wanted to try to show that you were fast or whatever. Now you've messed all your lines up. We don't care about that. Hit your marks. And a lot of times we'll even say, even if it's not the correct exact line, but if you hit that line that you're running every time, I'm okay with that. You could be a foot off, but if you're running that foot off of that, the race line or whatever, but you're running that foot off of that race line every lap, that's consistency. We can work on changing that, but the fact that you are consistently always there is what matters, right? I mean, we do want them to be on the right line, but if the consistency is there, we can always modify that line if we have to. But knowing that you'll just consistently always hit those marks is the important thing. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I kind of figured you were going to say that. But yeah, that's exactly what it is, especially intermediate to advanced, not or novice to intermediate. Intermediate to advanced, it's not so much because people are kind of up to speed, but like, um, yeah, they go up, they try to feel like, well, I need to show that I am quick, and then they end up messing up everything. So yeah, it's keeping their nerves down and just doing what they were doing. That's it.
Yeah. Well, and you know this too. Like anytime, when I used to race, and I think you still do some, like when we're chasing times and when we're really pressing, that's typically not when we're going to be the fastest.
No, no.
We're out there and we're just working on hitting our lines and trying to be smooth and just kind of going out there relaxed. I mean, when I used to chase times, I rarely would ever come back where I'd actually gotten a PR or I'd done a satisfactory set of laps. It's usually when I'm not chasing times, I throw a timer on just to see whatever, and I kind of get in a rhythm out there, and I'm relaxed, and I'm just kind of focused on hitting my marks and all that kind of. That's when you actually go faster, almost when you're not trying to.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, 100%.
So I think that's one of the things. Even well, that's not just for people who are trying to get up to a next level evaluation. That's even for us who have raced and done other things. It's you're always the fastest when you're kind of not focused on trying to push yourself. And usually when you're trying to push yourself and you're chasing a time, or you wind up. We do the same thing. We wind up overriding, and we just can't put a complete cohesive good lap together to get that. We're always somewhere we're off, and we're never getting it when we're pushing. And so I think it goes all the way up and down the chain when you're trying to go from novice to intermediate, or you're trying to just get better to be a better racer or whatever. I think the times when you're relaxed and you're just focused and you're not pressing too hard is when you actually are going to have the best chance to do the best laps.
Yeah, it's weird how that works when you go out and you're like, man, I did a whatever, and if I think I'm so close to getting that, going from an 11 to a 10, you're at a 11.02, and you're like, I know where I can make up some ground. You go out and you push to gain that time, and then you come back and you did like a 112.50, and you're like, oh shit. But then the next time you go out and you're not worried about anything, you're just cruising around, and then you do your 110. It's like it's really weird the times that you feel like you aren't trying whatsoever and it just comes together. But when you're pushing, then you start blowing lines and doing stupid things, and yeah, it's weird how that works, but that is 100% true.
For sure.
Well, man, if you got nothing else, then we'll wrap up. But I appreciate the conversation. It was awesome. I think people will probably get a lot from this one. You have a lot of experience and some good insight and stuff. So yeah, hopefully we have. I got a couple more lined up. Hopefully we can get everybody done, and it's fun and interesting to get everybody's perspective. There's a lot of aligning like viewpoints on things, and some that vary a little bit, and it's interesting to see those things. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you doing this and taking time out to do it because, like I said, we're not getting paid for any of this stuff. Like we don't get paid for coaching; it's just for the love of it. So, anything else, man?
Nah, man, it was a ton of fun. Thanks for doing this, and yeah, just appreciate you, and just glad and blessed to be a part of the community we're a part of.
Yeah, same here, dude. Well, again, appreciate you taking the time out to do it, and we'll talk with you another time, and then everybody else will get to see you out at the track. And next time anybody's out there, say hi to Matt, and that's going to be the wrap up here. So thanks a lot, everybody, for watching, and this will be up, I don't know when, but probably a few weeks or so, but we'll see you next time. Thanks.